voice of the Cayman Islands.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. And Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk Today.
What is on your mind, Cayman? If you are ready to talk, we are ready to listen. Here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on another terrific Thursday's edition of Talk Today, as we are sort of, getting the throes of the good things that sometimes get heated up. Yes, we're talking about hurricanes. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is reminding you.
Avoid any statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use indecent language or make any statement that is false or misleading. Call 1-800-534-8255, 949-6990, 949-8037, or WhatsApp us on 925-3261.
Email Talk Today at candw.ky. Let your voice be heard.
And now, back to Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, Radio Cayman Talk Today.
Hey, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks very much to the opportunity annually and sometimes, frequently throughout the year to be able to have this conversation with all of the agencies, especially under the auspices of the hazard management. Dani Coleman, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sterling, and thank you for all the listeners today. Yes, you got it right. It's that time of year again, and we know we've already had the forecast out, and John will talk to us more about the forecast soon, but it's going to be a busy season, so we want to make sure everyone's prepared. Before we start, I just want to introduce our fantastic guests today. We've got some brilliant people in the room, a lot of girl power, which we love to see. We have the Director of Water Authority, who's actually here today with a Utilities Emergency Support Team Leader hat under the National Emergency Operations Centre. So she's obviously wearing two hats here today, as well as the lovely Miss Jondo Obi, who's the Director of Red Cross, and also here as part of the voluntary agencies as the National Emergency Operations Centre, and my very, very good friend stroke work husband for the next 5 months, the Director General of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, John Tibbetts. Welcome all. We also have District Commissioner Mark Tibbetts joining us very, very soon from Cayman Brac. And again, we're going to have more listeners and more presenters today this afternoon, throughout the afternoon, to make sure everyone's prepared and can get sort of the different ideas from different members of the National Emergency Operations Centre in how best to prepare for the season.
Thank you. Wow, you see? You know why she is. But this is, let's start first with Ms. Jondo. Your wonderful colleagues the other day reminded me that we call it the H season. We don't say that other word.
Exactly.
The breeze.
Yeah, just a little breeze.
And the thing is, I listen to that. Sometimes two things, and I went away and I think of how words are not only important but empowering, and Scripture talks about speaking things into being. So I reflected and I thought, you know what, maybe if we refer to it in such a way so that people take away their fear, but also in a sense have that, that presence of mind. But through the Red Cross, your work may not only extend to the things that may transpire here in the Cayman Islands. You may be seconded, summoned, you may be requested somewhere to assist elsewhere.
No, absolutely. I mean, we think about hurricanes in our region, of course, but if you just look across the world, we're looking at wars, we're looking at other sort of hazards. So it's a very vulnerable world that we live in, and what is important as members of any community that we're in is to work together and make sure we're prepared, because preparedness is key to any sort of national emergency.
All right. Well, Dr. Gelia, as Dani shared, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on board, and I like what she shared. The presence of women like yourselves speak volumes to our ethos, our society. Blessed to have such a cadre of women throughout history. And the statue in town does very little to remind us of the importance, but at least it's there through you and the hats that you wear, but even as the helm of the Water Authority. Well, water is crucial, especially during a crisis.
Being as prepared as possible for any hazard, to me, is one of the most crucial things, and that's why we're here today. And I know HMCI actually spreads this message out a lot earlier than just a couple of days before the actual H season starts.
Yeah.
You're so good at painting that idea. Again, I think it's a great point. I mean, taking away the fear by being prepared. You know, the more prepared you are, you know, the much better you're going to ride out the season. It's making sure that you are not stressing out the last minute when you see a storm brewing underneath us. It's making sure that you have those plans in place, making sure that you have your supplies in place, making sure that your children and your animals are very much integrated into that. Again, that eliminates a lot of the fear that most of us feel. We wouldn't walk into an exam without preparation. Why would we start the hurricane season without preparation? So it's really important, that preparedness message.
What was that saying? You know, to be forewarned is to be having that sense.
I had a great quote yesterday. We were part of the Overseas Territory Disaster Management Conference. And it's like, the quote was, you don't learn to dance when you're on your way to the ball. And I love that because, again, you do not, with Bridgerton season, whatever it is out now, it's probably quite relevant. But you don't learn to dance on the way to the ball. So let's make sure that we don't learn to dance on the way to the ball and actually be ready for the season.
And this is where, as I come to, you know, the Director General, Mr. Tibbetts, the notion that your team, Ms. Dani's, and recently we've had the honor of the Red Cross on consistently making a concerted effort to ensure that our message is communicated to the public so that they understand. But I still have to share that just globally and even in our local media, we're bombarded by much. And for many, either two things can happen amongst many. One, they become petrified and paralyzed by all this constant, you know, programming. Or two, they become dismissive because, oh, I heard that before. So that balance between, hey, here's the factual accounts of what could be, with the idea that, you know, preparation is key. The hurricane season and the forecast are just that. But one is sometimes one too many.
Perhaps so. And to be honest with you, one of the concerns over the years has always been is that if you focus too much on the forecast itself, and we have one heck of a season forecast list for this year, and you're focused on that so much, and then if it doesn't pan out or you don't get any storms, then perhaps the next year when you hear the forecast, then you become even a bit more complacent and stuff like that. So we do have to be careful in our messaging and what have you, okay?
Yeah. Well, let's go into our break, and when we come back, continue the discussion. Mr. Tibbetts in the back hopefully will join us. We get that Sister Alice perspective because it doesn't matter, you know, if the storm or the thing is in Cayman. It matters because it is in Cayman. All three islands, you know. So, got to come together. After the break, please join us.
This summer, discover adventure, magic, culture, nature, and so much more with Cayman Airways. Airfares are now on sale for travel this summer. Visit New York, Denver, Los Angeles, Miami, Tampa, Kingston, Montego Bay, Panama, Havana, and La Ceiba. But hurry, sale ends June 1st. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com. Make this your best summer yet with Cayman Airways.
Discover your dream home with Cayman National's home loan. Get up to 95% financing, repayment up to 40 years, and just a 0.5% commitment fee. Your interest rate? Depending on your risk factors, it'll be fixed or variable. Plus, you get a pre-approved credit card. This is a limited time offer. Dial 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
Public health is the science and art of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through the organized efforts of society. Environmental health, mental health, and physical health are all public health. Cayman's new national health strategy aims to protect and promote the nation's public health outcomes, but to do this, we need to hear from you. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is now accepting feedback about healthcare in Cayman on mohfeedback@gov.ky or on gov.ky/health-wellness. Deadline is May 31st. Your opinion matters.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
The Ministry of Education and the Passport and Corporate Services Office remind all students traveling to and from school overseas to ensure their passports are valid for both travel and entry into their destination country. Passports should be renewed at least 10 weeks before departure, and any necessary student visas must be obtained. For passport services, contact the Passport and Corporate Services Office at 649-7678. For Ministry of Education scholarship inquiries, contact scholarships@gov.ky. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Education and the Passport and Corporate Services Office.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Welcome back, and thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to Miss Susan. She's got a lot to do, just 2 hands. This is when you want to be an octopus, man. I'm telling you. Well, to Dr. Gelia, Miss Jondo, Miss Dani, and of course, Mr. Tibbetts, John himself. Well, let's have a Tibbetts Square and go to the next Tibbetts in the BRAC. Inclusive is where we want to be as we welcome Mr. Mark. How are you today, sir?
Not too bad, sir. Good afternoon to you and the panel there, and also all those listening by way of Radio Cayman this afternoon and other social media outlets.
All right. Well, thank you. So, from your perspective on the BRAC, how are things shaping up? What are your expectations? What can you share with us? And then, by extension, not just specifically the Cayman BRAC community, but the wider Cayman Islands.
Thank you, sir. But I can speak this afternoon on behalf of the Sister Islands from the government standpoint, Sister Islands of Cayman BRAC and Little Cayman, to say we here from District Administration and our Sister Islands Emergency Committee have been quite active over the past few weeks or a couple of months, in fact, getting ready for what is forecasted to be a fairly active hurricane season. We here have been definitely checking our shelters within both of the Sister Islands, the BRAC and Little Cayman, making all our preparations. We've also been procuring some additional supplies for our stores, etc. for both the islands. We've also worked very closely with Hazard Management Cayman Islands, who have been over here in the Sister Islands over the past few weeks. They actually conducted some shelter management training for us. They also assisted us and brought us some supplies via the MV Dawn, which visited the Cayman Islands just a few weeks back. And we actually had a major exercise where they actually used the same motor vessel Dawn to transport some of our supplies for us here in the Sister Islands. And we're most thankful for Hazard Management, their entire team, for their continued support here in the wonderful Sister Islands of Cayman BRAC and Little Cayman. No doubt, with the forecast being extremely active season, that word is out and about within our little small communities for certain, and I'm most certain as well that our community here is doing their share as well to get prepared for the upcoming season.
And thank you, Miss Dani. I mean, this is
I
it.
just want to say thank you. It's always such a pleasure working with Mr. Mark Tibbetts and the Sister Islands Emergency Committee, as well as, of course, the CERT teams over there. You know, obviously the resources are slim across all three islands when you think about a big emergency, but of course in the Sister Islands they're even slimmer between ambulances, numbers and personnel and so forth. So having those teams over there well trained and the community engagement is just so critical, and I know Mr. Mark has done a lot to encourage that, and again it's always a pleasure working with him and the team over there.
Well, Mr. Tibbetts, with that in mind, I know that you have much and you are welcome to stay on as we continue our discussion, but please share anything else now at the outset if you wish.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the hurricane season predictions and where we were and where we stand right now. Last year, 2023, we had the fourth most active Atlantic hurricane season with 20 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. If you were to compare that to an average season is 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So when we're talking that last year was fourth most active, we're talking about the number of named storms, not so much the name of hurricanes and major hurricanes. Those were average by the standard. Now, when we go into this year and before we start to do the prediction, we're starting to look at some of the conditions that are setting up the season, as it were. The first part is really the very high sea surface temperatures right now. That are at record levels. So that is a component that does not bode well for the Atlantic Basin. It is one of the reasons why you will see that the hurricane season forecast will be quite inflated, as it were, much higher than normal. The second part of the equation is a bit concerning for me. Last year with the active season that we had, it came with an El Nino. Okay, usually an El Nino has a tendency to inhibit development. We have now transitioned, and we're pretty close to being in a neutral phase right now. And then, really and truly, by the time we get to the peak of the hurricane season, we are expected to be at a La Nina. All right. And why that obviously concerns me is that on the peak, when you're on the peak part of the hurricane season and the latter part of the hurricane season, this is usually where a lot of your Cat 5s and your major hurricanes come. And it is concerning that you having real record level sea surface temperatures and a La Nina coming at that particular time is very concerning. I will say that when I look out there right now, and we're talking about record level heat, but record level dryness right now as well, because by now we would have had our rainy season started. I know we've had a few showers in the last 24 hours, but I'm not totally there yet to see our rainy season has started yet. And that is a good and a bad thing. Obviously, it's very uncomfortable. Our air conditioning bills are high and all that kind of stuff. But it's a dry heat right now, all right? And a dry heat does not develop storms per se. Okay, so that's why I wasn't so surprised if the storm season doesn't take a while to get going, as it were. It has to get rid of some of that dryness first. Okay, and so when we look now at the hurricane season forecast, even though you had 20 named storms last year, Colorado states says we're going to have 23 named storms, so they're even up higher than was last year was, and the more concerning part, 11 hurricanes as opposed to 7 last year, and 5 major hurricanes. Okay, and then NOAA comes in, and NOAA's prediction basically validates what Colorado State is saying. They're forecasting 17 to 23 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, and 4 to 7 major hurricanes. So it looks to be a season in which we're expected to have quite a bit of activity. We don't know where that activity is going to be. Okay, that activity could be Northwest Caribbean, but at the same time, it could be way out in the Atlantic Ocean. God help us that it is a season in which we have a lot of these storms that are out in the Atlantic in the Atlantic Ocean, and that will hopefully get some of the Cat 5s and stuff out of the way rather than have them come through the Caribbean and cost the loss of life and damage to places and stuff like that.
Now, in addition to NOAA and Colorado State, are there other sort of reputable, credible,
There are other companies that produce weather hurricane season forecasts. I know the Weather Channel also produces one and what have you. But even their forecast has to be. I got a glimpse of their forecast, and their forecast was at record levels as well.
Right. So and beyond the U.S. in particular, what about into Europe?
Well, I know that the UK Met Office and some of their arms also produce weather forecasts, but all of those are all showing record level expectations. What we'll find though is that NOAA and the National Hurricane Center, I take those guys as the lead authority in this particular matter. They deal specifically with tropical meteorology, and it's a bit different when you're talking about extratropics and what have you. And that's why they're the lead authority on it, along with Colorado State, because Colorado State has been doing this for, well, let's see, I celebrated 39 years in May this year. And when I went to do my forecaster course, we were talking Genderen in Colorado State 39 years ago. The NOAA forecast season has come across since then, as it were. So Colorado State has a long, well-established history in predicting, as well as they've got the teachings of the man that's basically the father of the science, Mr. Gray, Dr. Gray. Yeah.
Ms. Dani?
Just to add to that, I mean, we had our Overseas Territory Disaster Response meeting yesterday. It was a workshop we did all morning, and the Met Office did a presentation from the UK, and again they very much in line with everyone else. It was 16 to 26 named storms, 8 to 16 hurricanes, and 2 to 6 major hurricanes. And they also talked about the pressure and this and that, and so and the water temperatures and the dryness as well, so and pressure. So I think it is one of those things. Everyone seems to be in line with each other this year, and that's not always the case. So I think we just have to obviously adhere warning, but also I don't think it matters really what the season is. I think we say it time and time again, it takes one storm to completely change your life. So we want to make sure no matter what the forecast is, you're ready to go.
1 can do 2 minutes. Dr. Gelia, when we come back, it's infrastructure, and I think water is crucial, not just for us, but even after the cleanup. But there's much. Maybe share with us a perspective, remind us, what can we do, what and how it's affected us. But we want to talk about infrastructure, its readiness, and the things that could be of concern. All right, I'm going to pause. When we come back, please join us.
At Doctor's Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctor's Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
Public health is the science and art of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through the organized efforts of society. Environmental health, mental health, and physical health are all public health. Cayman's new national health strategy aims to protect and promote the nation's public health outcomes, but to do this, we need to hear from you. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is now accepting feedback about healthcare in Cayman on mohfeedback@gov.ky or on gov.ky/health-wellness. Deadline is May 31st. Your opinion matters.
Find your dream car with a Cayman National Vehicle Loan. Enjoy 100% financing, up to 8-year repayment, and a 7% fixed interest rate for the first 5 years. For eco-friendly cars, we'll waive your commitment fee. This only applies to new vehicles. Call 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
The mission of the National Conservation Council and the Department of Environment is to ensure our islands consider responsible use of our natural resources while preserving our native species and habitats for future generations. Learn more at conservation.ky.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks to Miss Dani Coleman over the SNCA, Dr. Gelia, the Water Authority, Miss Jondo over the Red Cross, and the handsome gentleman in the room. No. Maybe he's like, which one? John Tibbetts. No, laughter, they say, is good medicine. In the classroom where there was a little bit more levity, I learned a lot better. But Dr. Gelia, thanks very much, and I respect and appreciate you guys coming over in the time. And I'm wondering to what extent as we look at water, because I'm going back and many of us missed after Ivan a lot of things. I missed my chocolate for a while, my stash went out. People wanted and craved ice and air conditioning, but water, being able to take a good shower, being able to clean the place. We thought we had water stored when we had however much, but we don't understand how important it is. Give us a perspective from two things. What do we need can do? What can you recommend us so that we can be prepared, but specifically with great respect? Any concerns with our critical infrastructure, our water in particular?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about this, Sterling. In terms of your own personal preparedness, there's a lot of information available through HCMI and on their website about having your own personal supply, enough for each person, your animals, etc. However, the thing is that for the Water Authority specifically, a lot of our pipelines are vulnerable because they're coastal. And we, of course, experienced that during the Great Ivan. And what it means is that depending on the severity of a storm that we expect is likely to hit us, then we have to take certain measures to ensure that we have as much water as possible retained in our reservoirs for the recovery. So that means that there is a chance that we will make a decision to shut down the distribution system.
In order to protect it.
In order to protect it so that there's water after. And we did that during Ivan, and I'm thankful that we did, because you certainly don't want to have a severe or significant loss of water when nobody can go out anywhere to deal with anything.
Right.
So that is why we totally support have your own personal temporary supply. I can't remember now, is it 5 or 7 days? Daddy, you got all everything in that booklet in front of you.
3 to 5 days.
Yeah, 3 to 5 days.
3 to 5 days. I mean, personally, I have more than that because I know the challenges. In the aftermath, we will do whatever is possible as quickly as possible to restore services. But the devastation that we had during Ivan, it meant that it took quite a while. I know within 2 weeks we had about 90% reconnected. But for the outer districts, at that time, we did not have a facility in North Side. So that meant that we did not have loops and more opportunities to isolate different areas. We are a lot more, I think we're much better prepared, a lot more resilient than we were during the Ivan time.
And I appreciate you focusing on water, and because you as heading up the utilities aspect, sometimes we may forget, there's the electricity, right? Even the ICT
gas,
part. And now increasing the gas, right?
She's a busy woman anyway in a regular day, let alone during an emergency.
Exactly. And we can see some of the synergies between the things. We can see, well, we can perhaps not have that just now because we got this. But they all are no pun intended, interconnected, right? So the utility with respect to electricity, how crucial is that for us to understand what's going to happen from the perspective of your group, your support team as the Utilities Emergency Support Team?
So basically, in a nutshell, we have, under the Emergency Support Team Utilities, we have fuel, and we have electricity, and we have water. And all of the key players in those different utilities are actually part of the EST team utilities. So CUC is there, and we have Cayman Brac Power and Light, also known as Island Energy now. We have Cayman Water Company, which is like our sister utility for water. We also have on the fuel side the big players such as Sol, Rubis, Refuel, and Home Gas and Clean Gas. So those are like the bigger entities that are there. And you're right, there is a lot of interconnectivity between all of us. They all have very solid plans themselves, each of these utilities. And part of my role is to coordinate some preparedness, but as well as to coordinate the interaction between the government side, which is represented by HMCI, and the utilities to facilitate the recovery or rebuilding as quickly as possible so that we can have services restored to some type of normality.
Ms. Jondo, as you wish, to please jump in, but volunteers come into play often. We can see the initial prep, getting people help, but after, calming people, getting things clean, getting things so they are accessible. From the Red Cross's perspective, you probably have an interesting role as an entity. How do you interplay with everybody else?
We do actually. So the Red Cross sits as the head of VARS, which stands for Voluntary Agency Responders. And if we look at the island, the beauty about Cayman is that we have so many organizations, service clubs that are doing fantastic work on a daily basis. But unfortunately, they might not really be thinking about emergency response. So because we partner with HMCI, one of the things that our role is to make sure we can bring those organizations together to really talk about how we respond post-disaster. And this means we need to understand what the capacity of each of these organizations have. So whether they're going to be bringing volunteers or whether they've got supplies on the island or things like that. So that's our main responsibility. But as a Red Cross, one of the things, we have an annual hurricane meeting, which Mr. Tibbetts will be joining us next week. We do this every year to bring all our volunteers together and just basically making them realize that whether you're doing first aid, whether you're in the thrift shop, or whether you're helping the seniors, when it comes to hurricane season, we're all emergency responders. So we want to hear the forecast. We want to make sure that we're well trained. Of course, we go into the shelters. And so we just had our shelter management training last week. We trained 48 shelter managers and getting them ready for the season. And we always call it the dreaded season. And yes, we want to talk about the H, but I think it's quite valuable that we, as an island, we all work together. I mean, this is unusual for people to come together and say, you know what, it doesn't matter what agency I'm working with, we're doing this for the people of the Cayman Islands. So we should really see this as a plus.
If I might ask, it's one thing to have many entities working independently. And as you shared, I can think of churches, service clubs, even community groups. But am I hearing that instead of having them operate in silos or meaningfully want to do something, is this a coordinated effort that in terms of a hurricane and its aftermath, it's all coordinated through the Red Cross, so that whatever these agencies are doing is not independent and not sort of off in left field?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Dani and I know from emergency response post-disaster is that communication is a key. And so if we're not communicating, we have people doing stuff in East End, others doing stuff in West Bay, and at the end of the day, we're not even helping the country as a whole. And their general national needs. So the whole idea is if we come together and we bring our resources together, we can do fantastic work because we know where the vulnerabilities are and we can put our resources in the right place.
I think it's a really good point, Jondo. I mean, obviously, Jondo and Red Cross are involved in pretty much everything as well, be it shelters, as Jondo mentioned, relief distribution, the aftermath, voluntary agencies. You know, I think one of the other main things that we work very closely with Red Cross is the community emergency response teams. Now, it's all great having volunteers out there to respond in the aftermath, but of course, it's a very dangerous field to be working in, and unless they're trained, they can actually add to the burden of the first responders. So I think a lot of work goes into training volunteers, making sure the guidelines are there, making sure they do have that awareness of the risk. And as a result, you know, the response is much more safe, but also more effective.
Yeah. So there's certain things. Thank you for referencing, because for me, they're akin to, you know, being our nights constantly. I know that Mr. Tibbetts is still on the line. Perhaps in closing, we can just start with him first. And Mr. Tibbetts, thanks for staying on. Thanks for sharing. But give us your closing thoughts for today's discussion. Mr. Mark?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for that opportunity as well, Mr. Sterling. Again, thanks for having me on there. Definitely trying to create more awareness within these islands for the upcoming hurricane season. I just want to take this opportunity to once again thank Ms. Dani Coleman there and Harvard Management, also John there from the Weather Service, and all others for their continued support for us over here in the Sister Islands of Cayman and Little Cayman. And just once more to just say to the residents over here in the wonderful Sister Islands of Brac and Little Cayman that, as we can definitely hear, that there's a forecast for a very active season. And I think we know the drill quite well as well over here in these islands to get prepared at this time. As the old saying says, get prepared, prepare for the worst, and hope and trust and pray for the best. Mm-hmm. And we here at Government from Sister Islands Emergency Committee, we stand prepared at this time, willing and able to also support our lovely little community here at Cayman Brac and Little Cayman for this upcoming hurricane season. Thanks again to each and every one, also to you there too, Sterling, and also Radio Cayman for always being out there and assisting us and getting the word out to the public within these wonderful Cayman Islands.
You're most welcome, Mr. Mark. And this is important. Now, Mr. John Tibbetts, you've given us a forecast, and as it's, you know, the systems develop, you keep us informed, right? And the final thoughts from you today, sir.
Well, just to let you know, the National Weather Service will continue to serve its function of monitoring the region and continuing to warn the public and advise the public on systems that develop. And we're constantly working on improving our system and improving our relationship with hazards management, and we're constantly working hand in hand with each other and what have you. And we always look to try and improve our circumstances and improve all kinds of coordination to ensure that we operate at maximum efficiency, because we want to make sure that everybody's warned in a timely manner and that information is as accurate as possible. So we look forward to continue to serving the people of the Cayman Islands in the upcoming season, regardless of how active it is, regardless of how much of a threat we get in the Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Mr. John. And Dr. Gelia and Mr. Jondo. Dani, before you finish, we'll ask Ms. Jondo and then Dr. Gelia for some thoughts.
Again, I think I'll hang on for the afternoons.
Okay, all right.
I'm having too much fun here, so I might stay put.
I appreciate it. Dr. Gelia.
All right, well, thank you very much. We certainly appreciated being here with HCMI, Weather, Red Cross, yourself, to talk about preparedness for this season. What I would like to also say is that, I have very strong confidence in our utilities that I am, dealing with on the EST. And I feel that the community can feel confident as well in their preparedness. What I would like to say before I just say goodbye to everybody is for companies and organizations out there, I strongly encourage you to have awareness sessions for your own employees. It is very important that your employees are themselves prepared so that they can be able to come back to work in a reasonable time. So that is one message I think that I'd like to leave with everybody right now.
Can
So
I
thank you
piggyback
again.
that?
Sure.
It's a brilliant opportunity to piggyback. Hazard management does a lot of PR and a lot of presentations to public. So, for example, in May, I think we've done something like 30 presentations with 1,699 people have been involved. That's just for the month of May. We are very happy to come out to businesses, to service clubs, to churches, to schools, whatever it is, you name it, and we will target our messaging according to what hazard you want to approach. Obviously, right now, hurricanes is probably the best thing to be discussing, but we're very much happy to do that at a very short notice.
Thank you, Mr. Sterling. One of the things I want members of the public to know is that a lot of times people can't be Red Cross volunteers as in year in, year out because they were quite busy. But when it's post-disaster, they want to help.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to encourage people to just register for emergency response prior. That makes our lives easier because then we can contact you. We can do a very short training. Globally, there's something called volunteering in emergencies. So no matter what country you're in, we want to make sure that we train you in a way that will be able to respond. So if there's anybody listening that thinks, you know what, I can't volunteer now, but I really want to help out post-disaster, you can register now. We will have your number, and we can always work with you if there is a hurricane.
Or with that,
any other emergency. Yes, exactly.
When we come back, we invite you to rejoin us because the discussion continues. The information is being shared freely. Stay tuned.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines. Local, regional, international news.
The Headline News is brought to you by Kirk Market and Health Services Authority.
I'm April Cummings with your latest headlines. Police say there are no safety concerns regarding staff and students after the discovery of what appeared to be an imitation firearm in a school bus today. Police say the item was found by campus security during a search of a school bus parked within the school compound. The investigation is underway. We'll bring you more details as we have them. In international headlines, partial results in South Africa's national election put the long-ruling African National Congress at below 50% of the vote as counting continued today, raising the possibility that it might lose its majority for the first time since sweeping to power under Nelson Mandela at the end of apartheid in 1994. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and 22 other Democratic senators are calling on the Department of Justice to use every tool at its disposal to prevent and prosecute alleged collusion and price fixing in the oil industry. In a letter today to Attorney General Merrick Garfield and other officials, the Democrats said recent Federal Trade Commission investigations into a high-profile merger uncovered evidence of price fixing by oil executives that led to higher energy costs for American families and businesses. Those are your headlines. I'm April Cummings.
More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
HSA's Urgent Care Clinic is now open 7 days per week to serve you better. Visit our dedicated team at Urgent Care Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and weekends and public holidays, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. No appointment necessary. If you are experiencing non-life-threatening symptoms and conditions such as the cold and flu, sprains and cuts, earaches, nausea and vomiting, visit Urgent Care's walk-in clinic at the main entrance of the Georgetown Hospital, now open every day. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
At Kirk Market, it's so easy to eat well and find healthy options. With their fresh veggies from local farmers, hormone-free chicken, local seafood, and grass-fed meats, Kirk Market has delicious, quality food at the best prices. And you must check out their fresh salad bar, hot bar, and med bar for daily healthy options on the go. Their delicious dishes are made with fresh, high-quality ingredients such as prime meats and organic veggies. Eating great is important to me. That's why Kirk Market is my store. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and shop happy.
Annie Elizabeth Bush, Certificate of Honor, 1901 to 1994. Annie was an enterprising young lady who learned to play the organ at an early age and for many years was organist at the George Hicks Memorial Church in South Sound. She also taught her niece to play, and she eventually took over Annie's duties. Annie always wanted to be a nurse. She studied first aid under the tutelage of the late Mrs. Andrews. She worked as a practical nurse for many years at both new and old Georgetown hospitals, and also a theater nurse. After retirement, she did private nursing. She was a good seamstress and did a lot of crochet. She left her family a large crochet of the Lord's Prayer.
This summer, discover adventure, magic, culture, nature, and so much more with Cayman Airways. Airfares are now on sale for travel this summer. Visit New York, Denver, Los Angeles, Miami, Tampa, Kingston, Montego Bay, Panama, Havana, and La Ceiba. But hurry, sale ends June 1st. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com. Make this your best summer yet with Cayman Airways.
Discover your dream home with Cayman National's home loan. Get up to 95% financing, repayment up to 40 years, and just a 0.5% commitment fee. Your interest rate? Depending on your risk factors, it'll be fixed or variable. Plus, you get a pre-approved credit card. This is a limited time offer. Dial 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Cayman Islands, your input can shape our future. Plan Cayman needs your input on the updated planning statement to create a sustainable community for everyone. Help shape Cayman's future by participating in public consultations with the Central Planning Authority and the Ministries for Planning and Sustainability. Together, we can build a thriving Cayman. For details and to find the meeting closest to you, visit plancayman.ky. Your voice matters. Let's plan Cayman together.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And as we invite and ensure that our people are properly prepared and informed as we get into the hurricane season, not to do anything other than to give you timely, accurate information to help you in your preparation so you can be safe. Well, she continues to sit with us, Ms. Dani Coleman, HMCI. Every year having these discussions, I think they're important in the fact that we have continued discussion throughout the year, gives people a sense of the importance. But I like what Ms. Jondo alluded to as she closed, the fact that this entire community rallies together, not just for national disasters or the like, but for hurricanes in particular. I think back to the days of Mr. Grant and the like, when I think at the helm of headed by Mr. Nixon, you remember how this was part of what was there. So Dani, this is a discussion that should enlighten and inform, hopefully get people the position of comfort.
I think that's a really good point. I'm not sure if I'm on. Am I on?
I don't know. You're on.
I'm on. Okay.
You're always on.
So we can't hear it, but anyway. I think it's all about relationships. And I think a lot of the relationship building happens outside of the season and outside of emergencies. Obviously, we're only as good as we can be when we work together. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I didn't mean to deafen you, Mr. Sims. But we're only good as we can be when we work together and when we've had that relationship built beforehand, because things can get very, very stressful during an activation. You haven't slept for a long time. You're making decisions, but you also got to be switched on and being ready to go. And I think without those relationships, it's very difficult to be an effective unit. So that's, again, why we love having all our stakeholders around the table. We love working with them. We're very, very lucky. We've got Mr. Stephen Duval here today. We've got Natalie, again, both from HSA and EMS. And, of course, my very good friend, Mr. Richard Sims from DEH. And also, again, his role as the head of the infrastructure cluster. And Stephen's very much involved with the medical emergency support team under the NEAC. So again, these relationships have been built from a very long time, and I think again we just work together in blue skies and in grey.
That's a song there.
I just came up with that. It's great, isn't it?
Stephen, take out your guitar. That's a song, man.
It sounds very good. I think Dani is correct. Being interoperable and having that synergy is so key. During the gray and those blue skies, for sure. It transcends and makes things much more efficient and effective when we have major or critical events to address.
Yeah. Well, before we ask Mr. Sims to come in, Ms. Natalie, the idea that, the medical aspect of things, and we heard Jondo talk about training up more sort of shelter managers. Sometimes we don't want to be having to do these things, but we understand the necessity. But we also appreciate being equipped. Gives us a sense of confidence. That competence gives us the ability to respond. But it's a lot. So from the perspective of the HSC, to what Stephen was shared, help us to appreciate where we are, what we're looking at, and that health and safety that comes in before, while we're preparing, but during the actual passage and then the aftermath.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say, yes, we all are on board with the level of preparedness that we all have to do, both individually and collectively as an organization. And from the health and safety perspective of it, HSA remains in the forefront with our emergency support team. So in advance, we plan to meet, or we meet annually with our emergency support team, which is made up of a multi-agency approach, where we sit and we talk about what level of preparedness do we have already and what will we do in the event of. So we start talking and having this discussion early in the hurricane season, and as well as an organization, we speak with our employees and we talk about them. We tell them what is the expectation in the event there is a hurricane. And we know we have to provide service. Healthcare never ends, right? Or never stops. So we have to provide service, but we continue to do so in a safe manner and at a timely manner as well. We, as you know, for example, the EMS would stop operating at a certain time. Likewise, the accidents and emergency department would be obstructed or stopped at a certain time, but once it is safe, we will take patient. But continuing safety is necessary for both the residents of the Cayman Islands as well as for us, the staff at HSA.
I think Natalie brings a brilliant point up there, because we often, during an activation, will often get phone calls coming through saying we need to be evacuated because of something. Now, I think it's really important for the public to bear in mind that during a mid-storm, when there's serious risk of being out, emergency services often can't come out because, again, the vehicles, and we can't be putting our emergency services at risk. So you have to be ready. Appreciate certain things will happen that are out of your control, in which case, yes, there will be times we'll do our very, very best to evacuate people. But just bear in mind that mid-storm, when there's storm surge and there's winds and then all sorts of these things, the chances of getting out to you are quite slim. So make sure you are prepared and don't put yourself at risk.
Agreed.
Now, I told we have a couple of callers on. I want to get Mr. Sims in, but let's take the calls and see how that information.
Sure. Yeah.
As we go to the phone, say welcome. Thanks for calling. Yes, hello.
Hello. Hello, Sterling.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, man. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Excellent. Thank you for joining in today.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me or allowing me. And good afternoon to your guests that are in studio now.
Good afternoon,
everyone. I was listening, or perhaps the last few minutes, 10 minutes or so of your previous panel. And so with this panel on, I realize now, Sterling, what you're covering, because I'm actually tuned in from the car to your Radio Cayman awesome app.
Okay.
Because this particular topic captures me, partly because obviously I lived through Ivan, and I was a civil servant at the time, and I was grateful to play a part at the West Bay Shelter as a what they call a district representative, and that's a post-hurricane function. Well, pre-hurricane, it's about loading the supplies in the shelter, preparing for post-hurricane distribution. And there's a few things caught my ear, and I've been thinking about it. And one of them I was thinking about for the last few days, because it came to my knowledge, and it's a little controversial, and I'm hoping that we can handle that in the midst of this, but I'm hoping that it's helpful for us to think about. And if I can understand, my recollection from Ivan was that we had a national hurricane committee at the time. And everyone understood that NHC was the driver of all things hurricane. And as you started to mention a while ago, the stalwarts and Mr. Kirkland Nixon, I remember Mr. Dwayne Ebanks, who was then the permanent secretary, who we now call the deputy governor, was heading it up. And so the country understood who was in charge. Are we saying then, and as a result of Ivan, we realized we needed some sort of a coordinating group, and that's how I understand was the precursor for what Miss Danielle heads up now, the hazard management, to kind of coordinate the entire thing. Would that be right? But do we still have then in major committee, national committee, is that what you're kind of featuring now?
I think that's a great question, and again, I must thank you for being a part of the shelter response in Ivan, and I'm sure we'll have to encourage you to get back into a shelter management role, because you sound like you've got a good command of people and so forth. You're absolutely right. Now, so what happened in 2017 as a result of Ivan is that we've now got the hazard management department. We deal with all hazards. So, of course, hurricanes are one of the hazards, but we also deal with everything from, earthquakes, natural emergencies, to hazard material spillage, and we've been involved in migration and so forth. So it's quite a wide mandate. We do still have all the key players from the National Hurricane Committee, but we have different layers now. So we have the executive, which has all sort of cabinet ministers, and it's chaired by the governor and the premier. We have a strategic coordination group, which is a sort of policy group, and then we have the National Emergency Operations Centre, which is more tactical. So you've got a number of the same key players, but they're just put into different groups now. And the idea is to make it a more robust and a bit more, keep the different layers separate, because, of course, making strategic decisions is quite different from tactical decisions. But, yeah, very much so. The actual structure itself is become more and more robust.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate your kind comments. And, in fact, this is the controversial thing that I'm saying I'm going to ask you.
I love a bit of controversy. Don't worry about that.
Well, recently, so two things. I've been always wanting to be a part of it. Again, I just seem to be missing either your emails or your public announcements. Maybe I'm not in the media or reading where you're distributing, asking people to be volunteers. And here's why. Here's the added piece. Recently, I saw something. And I heard your person, the lady there from the Red Cross, talking about the fact that there were 48 volunteers. And I read something recently where there were 30 volunteers that were from the Philippines. And it struck me because, let me tell you, Miss Danielle, I'm not sure where you were during Ivan, but my recollection, once Governor Dinwiddie at the time, as I recall, he declared Cayman a state of emergency before we hit. And it defaulted to the National Hurricane Committee, and we were, I was pleased to say that we were well organized. Everything went into action. But I can tell you when Ivan hit, and then the nightmare after, as you all mentioned, their communication is key. I recall the then CEO of Cayman Airways, Mr. Adams, and I know he wouldn't mind me saying this, flagging me down in West Bay when I was trying to make it to the West Bay shelter so that he could try to get through to NHC on my radio because he'd lost communications. I remember sitting in the premier car, Mr. Bush at the time, who also flagged me down. He was trying to make connections with NHC and get through to the governor's office. And so nothing sometimes seems to work. It all, when we all open our doors, I'm sure that we all remember the nightmare. We couldn't even recognize places. And my point was that I remember when he declared a state of emergency, I can't remember if it was days prior or whatever, Mr. Donovan actually worked closely with the hotels. We obviously went into trying to evacuate as many expatriates as we could off the island, primarily because there was no space to store them and nobody was expecting a Category 5 to come barreling down. As we remember, it was heading towards Jamaica. And Cayman Airways, good faithful Cayman Airways, flying back and forth. The point is that have we thought about the fact that we will be asking people to leave the island? Last thing we want is 2,000, 3,000 visitors here. And then naturally, because people are scared, not just expatriates, I remember Caymanians leaving as well, grabbing their suitcases and their passports and leaving off the island. And so I can't understand why we would encourage for expatriates to be a part of the emergency response in the midst of dealing with our shelters when we're trying to get spaces for Caymans themselves. And we've grown. I don't care how we put it, but we've grown. 20 years ago, we were 20,000 people, 25,000 people less. So I guess it was something that I've been mulling over in my head since I read that. I was like, I don't know where they're recruiting those volunteers, because I remember the good faithfuls that would come every year, and some of them by way of the civil service, and a lot of them, though, were just people who came every year. And I'm not sure where you're recruiting from, and that's primarily what I want to know, is where you're recruiting from and the default in terms of who's driving things, because it becomes a nightmare, Ms. Danielle. Although I have great faith in you and the coordination for the major committees, it's just I just like to know, having lived through it, that we're set and we're ready, and that making sensible decisions.
Yeah, I think you have a really good point there. I just deal with a couple of questions or things that you've come up with. That group you refer to, the Filipino group, is not actually part of our national emergency structure. I believe they've done a pledge to be part of the community structure that they are part of. So that's not part of the national structure. We've had discussions last week with the group themselves. The shelter managers are the ones, it's open for anyone. So we are about to train shelter managers, I think it's next week or the week after. And again, the shelter managers that Jondo referred to are actually Red Cross shelter managers. So you wouldn't do that unless you were a Red Cross volunteer. But the actual shelter managers themselves, we are being, in about literally 2 weeks' time, we'll be doing that training. So we'd love to have you on board for that. And again, that's open to anyone in the Cayman Islands who wants to be part of the actual response. A lot of work now is going on to recovery and continuity. So one of our responsibilities at Hazard Management is to review all of government continuity plans to make sure they're safe, fit for purpose. And that's going into a software now. So that actual whole mechanism is much more modern as of this year to make sure it all sort of talks together as opposed to not. The point about the state of emergency, again, I think that's a really good point, because we do have legislation nowadays that we've drafted and redrafted with experience that actually has a lot of, I say power, I don't want to say power, it's probably the wrong word, but it gives the government authority. Thank you very much.
Power.
Power authority. It gives the government and Hazard Management Department a lot of leeway to do certain things. For example, if there's a place we need to evacuate, we can call it a hazardous area. If we need to acquire property, I say public property, so vehicles, personnel or buildings, Hazard Management respond with the upstairs, I'm talking about the executive here, can do that. So there's a lot of these kind of things in play. In regards to visitors, they're the first to try and get evacuated off the island. We do work with hotels and again make sure that people who can't leave the island can be accommodated in the hotels that they're currently in. What we've seen in the past is that people leave the hotels and have nowhere to go, and of course at that point they use the public shelters if they can't get off the island, and that's a real problem for us, because of course we do want people who are resident on island to be able to utilise those shelters. As far as the NEAC goes, we do have Cayman Airways as part of that evacuation emergency support team. So we have 19 emergency support teams under the NEAC. And again, the relationship has morphed very much from that National Hurricane Committee into a much more stronger unit. And it even includes things like amateur radio, for example. So there's lots going on. But again, if you do have access to the website, we have www.caymanprepared.ky has a lot of information about the upcoming training for shelter training, as does our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. But we'd love to have you on board, because I do think you'd be a real asset for us.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I appreciate the work that you all do, and I guess we all can just pray to the good Lord that we don't get a direct hit by a hurricane this year. But thank you for the work that you do, and I appreciate your feedback as well. And I will go onto that website.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much, Sean. And before we take the call, Mr. Sims, welcome. But this is where I think these discussions help to not only inform and edify, but it gets people to a space where they can clarify and confirm certain things. And your job, like many, right in front and center, man.
Yes. When it comes to infrastructure, it's real important section of this committee, and all I've said before me, they made some real good contributions, and as Stephen alluded to, you have to have synergy, right? Mm-hmm. And Dani does a good job in terms of bringing all those synergies together. so that we can all function well. But as it relates to infrastructure, I'd like to say to people first is that we got to do three things prior to a hurricane coming: prepare, and prepare some more, right? Because as I was listening, coming in to the studio, I heard Dani give some advice about, you can't learn dancing on the way to the ball, right? You have to dance first, right?
I'm so glad you picked that up.
He was listening.
Yeah, I was listening. Yeah, but the role of the infrastructure team, I feel, is very important because, as Stephen would appreciate being an emergency response team member, if the way is not clear for people to get access, then the infrastructure would have failed in its endeavors, right? And we want to make sure that people understand that when it comes to the advice to hunker down, you hunker down and don't go out on the roads until you get advice from us that it is safe to do so. Because we're responsible for clearing and removal of debris and so on. And once a major storm hits, well, the infrastructure will be affected, right? So we have to make sure that the teams go out and get those jobs done. I want to also take this time to say a big thank you to the infrastructure team. They've met last week, and we went out to tour the island and look at place where we can actually create as debris sites, right? We've identified some new ones. We've lost some because, as you know, the island is continually being developed. So, places that we would have, have access to before, they're no longer. But we've actually managed to secure enough spaces to secure debris, and that's in every district, right? So that people will have a place to go to take their stuff, because the landfill is only has so much space, and I can tell you I get worried when I hear we're entering hurricane seasons, because when you look at the mass development that's going on, and then if the destructions follow suit, then we got to find somewhere for them. Right, so but this is where we come in, and we have been acquiring new equipments to help us. So I think we're a little bit better prepared this year than we were last year. So some good stuff going on from the infrastructure side.
Can I just add really quickly? Under the infrastructure cluster, you obviously have utilities, and Ms. Julia has talked about utilities already, but you also have the debris clearance, is what Richard just talked about. You also have damage assessment, economic impact. So we like to make sure that we can evaluate the financial costs of the island of what the damage is. So as soon as the all clear is, actually just a little before the all clear is given, we have teams, assuming it's safe, out in the field, providing this data to us directly from the field into the NEAC, and we can make decisions as to what that damage looks like. Yep. But again, that damage is all calculated, so the island knows how much that storm or whatever it is has affected financially the island, which is a really good mechanism to have in place, because it's not everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
And that damage and economic impact assessment, will that also extend to not just calculating, well, this building has come down X, but
it's everything. Yeah. I mean, again, we did one after I say we, the royal we, as in the team. The team did one after the storm in January. And again, to see the financial implications of a storm like that, over millions of dollars of damage, it's private and public sector. Mm-hmm. So how much does each storm cost the Cayman Islands? And it's important information to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, we need to know what it costs to rebuild, right? Because if you lose something, you want to know what it costs. It's just like when you think about your insurance. So when you go and get the evaluation, they talk about the reconstruction costs, right? So that's what the evaluation team will go out and make those assessments. And I think we have some real good, dedicated people, on not just on our team, but I think within the whole civil service that actually go out there and make big contributions,
And one of the things I like about these panels and the discussions that come in, for me, it speaks to the socioeconomic impact. And for people, I've heard development mentioned now how many times. I should start to keep a tally and I decided not. Because that development is going to impact, do you have that space to put the debris afterwards, if only temporarily? Or what about midstream, that physical structure, what happens in relation to its impact around? So to you, Ms. Natalie, this only puts greater pressure on your component within the health services, whether it's an emergency room or whether it's the EMS.
That's right. I know Ms. Dani spoke about Cayman Prepared and staff residents can go to the site and see the shelters. But I just want to touch on our emergency medical centers that are often used as shelters. And we currently have 9 of them, and I want to list them. I know we have a time restraint, Mr. Dwayne, but I know I'll be a visitor at another time. But then, nevertheless, we have Prospect Primary School, Sir John A. Comber Primary School, Sir Cradrock Ebanks. Credit. Listen, my apologies, team. I always get tongue twisted with that one. Civic centers, and this is in Northside, Clifton Hunter High School Gymnasium, Bordentown Primary School Multipurpose Hall, but I'm not sure as yet if this will be changed to Bordentown Primary Church, Church of God. Savannah Primary School, Assembly Hall, Aston Rotty, and this is in Cayman Brack, and the Public Work Department building in Little Cayman. But before I extend, I must say there is a criteria. So these centers will be used to provide medical services during a hurricane and will be equipped to provide care with appropriate bedding, staff, equipment, power, and supplies for patients in the community. Also, if these patients have caregivers, it is the expectation that the caregivers should come with them to these medical centers. And again, if there's any questions, we will be here again at some point. Yes. But nevertheless, HSA will be putting out information there. And if you can visit our nearest health centers, the nurses there are willing to talk to us about this process and how you can, if you are aware of anyone in the community who may need this service, to reach out to the nurses in charge.
And just to make it very clear, so there's 19 shelters, there's maybe 20 this year, depending on if we could get the last one over the hill. So 19 shelters for now in the 3 islands, 9 of which are emergency medical centres, but every single one of them will have a first aid volunteers in there from Red Cross. So yes, the EMCs, if you do have any kind of illness and you need that extra support, definitely go to an EMC, otherwise another shelter will have Red Cross support.
Good. I think we got to break with Susan. No, let's keep talking. Take the break. Yeah, she's like, you can do that. I try to get, and then when we come back, you want to rejoin us, man. Stay tuned.
This summer, discover adventure, magic, culture, nature, and so much more with Cayman Airways. Airfares are now on sale for travel this summer between Grand Cayman and all of their international summer destinations. Visit New York, Denver, Los Angeles, Miami, Tampa, Kingston, Montego Bay, Panama, Havana, and La Ceiba. But hurry, this summer airfare sale ends June 1st. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com. Make this your best summer yet with Cayman Airways.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained entertain. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
If you or your loved one is facing cancer, only Sylvester will stand firmly by your side at every step, from diagnosis through survivorship, providing you and your family peace of mind and assisting with everything you need before, during, and after your stay with us. Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center is South Florida's only NCI-designated cancer center and specializes in treating the most complex cancer cases. Your first-class cancer care is just a flight away. Learn more at sylvester.org.
Water Authority Cayman wishes to inform its Cayman BRAC customers that there will be temporary interruptions to water service in the upcoming week from Monday 27th May to Friday 31st May between the hours of 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on specified days. Affected streets are Plover Crescent, Wellington Park Drive, Coastal Way, Pearl Avenue, Sloop Way, Briggs Street, Surf Lane, Cliff Avenue, Seaward Drive, Skiff Lane, Sanford Drive, Frigate Drive, Unnamed Road west of Frigate Drive, Beach Drive, Coral Avenue, and Cape Drive. Customers who will be affected will receive a door hanger notice, which will be delivered the day before service is scheduled to be interrupted. An additional door hanger notice will also be delivered upon restoration of water service. These service interruptions are to facilitate our ongoing leak detection project. The aim is to enhance our system's integrity by identifying and repairing all possible leaks. We advise customers to store enough water for personal use during service interruptions and limit the use of water-intensive appliances. For further information, customers may contact the customer service team in Cayman BRAC by calling 948-1403 or emailing braccs@waterauthority.ky.
The Economics and Statistics Office is currently conducting the annual business surveys until June 14th. The surveys seek to collect information needed to answer these questions. How did the economy perform in 2023? In 2023, how much did foreign companies invest in the Cayman Islands? The surveys include all relevant entities that produce goods and services in the Cayman Islands. The surveys are confidential under the Statistics Act and are exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. Your response matters. Do your part. Fill out and return your survey forms to the ESO. Remember, better data, better decisions, better business. For assistance in filling out the forms or for more information, visit www.eso.ky or call 244-4676 or 244-4600.
The Family Resource Center's Safe Start Forum will take place on Saturday, June 1st from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. for parents and teens. Parents can expect to gain the knowledge and tools to support their teens in making healthy choices and increase their confidence in parenting teenagers. Experts will share research-based information on the subject areas of adolescent development, child safeguarding, and digital responsibility. Teens will have the opportunity to participate in interactive discussions to address the pressures they face within a safe and supportive environment. Sessions will address topics like decision-making, recognizing red flags, and healthy technological use. Join us for a Safe Start happening Saturday, June 1st.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skin care, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drportercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back and thanks for joining us. I'm really grateful, as I shared privately, always publicly, the team assembled each year for these discussions. Thank you very much for making yourselves available, and I'm hoping as the public will be informed. And thanks for allowing us to have somewhat of an abbreviated discussion. But as we continue, and before we welcome the others, Mr. Sims, Ms. Natalie?
Yeah, I just want to say, but just before I leave here, Charlton, thank you for hosting us every year. You do an awesome job in doing that.
Not a sterling effort, huh?
And you do so sternly.
Wow!
Where are we going?
All right, I just want to encourage everyone out there to make sure that they prepare for the hurricane season. And then in terms of infrastructure, you can rest assured that there is a well-oiled team ready and gearing to make sure that before utilities go down, they're up as quickly as possible. If the roads are obstructed, that they're cleared quickly as possible. So we just want to make sure that everybody play their role and listen to all the advices that are given today, and particularly, especially when it comes to keeping your property clear from all flying breeze. I think that is important because that will then minimize the obstructions that goes in the roadways and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that people play their role and help their neighbors and help each other to get ready for the season. And let's hope and pray that although the season is predicted to be very active, that it doesn't really impact us in any great shape. We really don't need that. We don't need another Ivan at this time. I mean, for those who experienced that will remember that was not a nice thing to have happened to us, but we made it through, right? We bounced back. So hopefully with all the preparation that we're making, that we'll be in a position to bounce back pretty quick.
Ms. Natalie.
Great. At the Health Services Authority, we remain committed to caring for the residents of the Cayman Islands. Therefore, don't be caught empty-handed when illness or disaster strike. Having the right documents can save your lives. Just want to wrap up by saying expectant moms, oncology patient, dialysis patient, again, reach out to us if you're not concerned. Speak with your doctor. In the event, we are approaching the hurricane season, and not just hurricane season, any emergency can happen at any time. So start having this conversation, start having it within the household, start incorporating the children, as simple as it may seem. We're here for you. Our numbers remain the same, 949-8600. Our communication will be going out. Any contact needed, reach out to us. Any clarification needed regarding any information presented here today, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Ms. Dani, who do you want next?
Stephen, would you like to go next?
It's just to add upon everything that Ms. Natalie, Richard, and yourself have spoken about. From an EMS perspective, we also echo preparedness. Preparedness from personal preparedness from our employees, from our community. I know Colin will speak of medication, your passport, your documentation, but home safety as well. Is your generator serviced? Where are you going to store it? Is your first aid kit updated? Those are all essential things. What is your next of kin plan? We encourage you to speak to your public health representatives within the district. Identify if there's vulnerable individuals within your community or family that may need EMS transport assistance pre-events. This allows us strategically to know exactly where the numbers are and be very efficient. From an EMS perspective, it's very fluid. Pre-events, we're managing at least 3 different events, or normal emergency response, or surge capacity. So these are individuals that need dialyzed care. We're looking at our in-house patients who need to be transported home to provide more space. And then there is the events during, where we're communicating with our 911 or NEOC. What events are happening that we need to respond in a timely fashion post-event. So there's a lot of moving parts. Post-event, looking at a risk assessment, what is our asset management, both in our infrastructure and in our human capital. And it's so important that pre-preparation gives us a lot better success in the end if those assets and staff are prepared. And then responding timely. So there's a lot of fluid, events happening, and working together collectively makes a good result. So quite busy, but I know time is sensitive, so we'll give Colin some time.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. one of the things we have to reiterate every year is that persons tend to take it for granted, and they wait until there's an event or just prior to an event to accumulate any necessary meds they may have outstanding or may need to get refilled and so on. One of the things we're asking persons to do is, first of all, secure an airtight container or plastic Ziploc bag, something that would float in the event of flooding, so that you'd be able to retrieve it if it gets away from you in the unfortunate situation. Obviously, the Ziploc bag also would be good to keep your meds intact in case there's any the possibility of any leakage or wetting. And we ask persons to do that. It doesn't have to be a Rubbermaid box. It can be any simple plastic container with a secure lid that snaps shut. And once it snaps shut, it is airtight. Now, the other thing is that we are asking persons to secure at least 2 weeks' supply of additional meds. If you've already got your refills and an event comes along, there's no need to come to the hospital to get additional medicine because you've already got supplies to last you for at least 2 weeks after the event. And we presume that in that time, we'd be able to resume near normal conditions as well as activities again. The other thing is this: as long as you are collecting your medicines for that purpose, the extra meds should be kept until the end of the hurricane season, and only used at the end of the season. And if you have a visit for your physician during the season, then you take all of those meds with you just in case there's a change to anything that you may have received from the doctor. Sometimes the doctors change your medicine, and the medicine that you have in storage for the season is no longer necessary. So it is good to bring those back in so that we can change and give you up-to-date medicine. And again, you put those in your container, and you keep them safely until the end of the season, and use them as the season ends, and just continue to do so until you see your doctor for your next visit or you need a new refill.
Mm-hmm. This is where I'm eternally grateful for these discussions. Hopefully, we'll have them more frequently and as a panel. So, Ms. Dani, we have another group come shortly as well, right?
Oh, we do. I'm afraid we're on fire today in regards to time-wise. It's sort of getting everyone in and getting everyone through. But the idea of today is literally the start of our media blitz to make sure you're aware of the different departments involved in the response, but also preparedness kits from a medical standpoint, from a cleaning and health, environmental health, from a utility standpoint, just to sort of give you an overview, a flavour. But of course, there's a lot more conversation to be had. We do have our first responders coming in now, and they'll talk a bit about sort of the Coast Guard, fire and police. And then we'll have to come back and talk to you much more about general preparedness and how we all work together. Again, the synergy is really very impressive these days, and I think I'd like to say we're a well-oiled machine, but of course that's only well-oiled until we're tried and tested to make sure that we really are well-oiled. So hope it's not this year, but again, we're very much here to help the public to get prepared.
Thank you, and we will have more discussions collaboratively, but certainly, as individual entities, HSC and the like. All right, to our listeners, when we come back, another set more information, so rejoin us.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
This summer, discover adventure, magic, culture, nature, and so much more with Cayman Airways. Airfares are now on sale for travel this summer. Visit New York, Denver, Los Angeles, Miami, Tampa, Kingston, Montego Bay, Panama, Havana, and La Ceiba. But hurry, sale ends June 1st. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com. Make this your best summer yet with Cayman Airways.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
Find your dream car with a Cayman National Vehicle Loan. Enjoy 100% financing, up to 8-year repayment, and a 7% fixed interest rate for the first 5 years. For eco-friendly cars, we'll waive your commitment fee. This only applies to new vehicles. Call 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
This is Ronnie Anglin. I work in the water sports industry. I'm concerned that our islands are at a high risk of coral bleaching and coral disease outbreaks. Rising sea levels, sea temperatures, and ocean acidification have caused catastrophic increases in the number and severity of coral bleaching events, disease, and death. Snorkeling and diving may one day not be an option. To learn more about climate risk to our islands, visit www.gov.ky/climate change policy.
The Council of Older Persons is proud to present the first Aging in the Cayman Islands Forum. This forum will be held on Saturday, 15th of June at Sir Vassal Johnson Hall at UCCI and is free to the public and open to all ages. Registration will open at 8:30. Presenters and topics aim to truly reflect the needs of Caymanians and residents so we can all age with dignity. For more information, visit www.gov.ky/Older Persons Council.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back. And this is why the things are organized. Miss Dani Coleman.
Thank you very much, Sterling. Again, we've got the dream team of emergency responders in today, this afternoon. We've got the Regiment, we've got Coast Guard, we've got Fire and RCIPS. But before I hand over to them, I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Sterling, but also to the public. Please, please, please get prepared. We are really hoping that everyone's ready to go. It's obviously June 1st is on Saturday. We're here to help. We've got great information on our website at www.caymanprepared.ky, our Facebook, Twitter, and our Instagram. And we've also got a brilliant thing called the National Emergency Notification app. So if you haven't downloaded that already, please do so. If you need help, again, we're here to help. So please contact us at Hazard Management. And again, over to the dream team of the first responders. And the uniforms in here are really rather spectacular. They've been polishing their boots and their silvers today. So thank you, gents, for joining us.
Miss Dani, you can stay. You can go. As she makes her exit, there should be a theme song playing. But she is right, the dream team. I was thinking how we would do this, but set up nicely. She says RCIPS. Keep looking for something else. But maybe just go to Mr. Yearwood, if you would. So we can start with you, then Mr. Charlton, then Mr. Scotland, and Mr. Carter.
Yeah. So good evening to you and to the listening public. From the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, Inspector Ian Yearwood representing RCIPS, and I just want to share with the public that we are ready with our plans as it relates to the upcoming hurricane season. We've got officers assigned to various locations across the Cayman Islands on a whole at various and covering every single district. So I'm just going to leave it at that and hand over to Deputy Chief Charlton.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for having me as part of the representative of the emergency cluster. Just to, I guess, elaborate on some of what Ms. Coleman has said and Mr. Yearwood. I mean, we've have our plans in place. We've done our hurricane preparedness test with all the stations throughout the islands. Our teams are ready. equipment, how we would strategically place wherever, whatever, in the event of an emergency, whatever. So pretty much, it's the thing about a hurricane is that, you can always prepare for it. And that's one of the things that we want to get across from the fire service standpoint is that, the messages keep going out, but we encourage people to please be prepared, get your supplies, get your documents, have all of these things in place and stuff like that. And, heed to all the warnings that you may get, whether it be via radio, via television, whatever. Because at the time, we can be laid back. We Mother Nature is something that we can never predict. So, even for people in low-lying areas and stuff like that, heed the warnings. We've had issues with this before. People, I don't want to leave my home and stuff like that. And then it puts the emergency services out at risk because we have to go into those areas and stuff like that. So, but yeah, just heed the warnings and be prepared.
Thanks, Deputy Fire Chief. Mr. Scotland, we recognize that we're on an island surrounded by a body of water. And many times some people think of hurricanes have this impact only on land as a result of incoming seas and rains and wind and the like. But from the Coast Guard's perspective, maybe we don't truly appreciate the crucial role that you play with the synergies, with the fire, with the police, for instance. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Robert Scotland from the Cayman Islands Coast Guard. Thank you for having us and for the rest of the emergency team. Just touching on what you said, yes, while a lot of the activity will be taking place on land, a lot of people tend to discard the warnings that are placed, especially around where you're going to store your boat in the event that a hurricane or a storm is coming this way. The message from us is plan. Develop a plan from now before it happens on where you're actually going to berth your boat or moor it, where you're going to keep it once a storm is declared coming our way. If something is declared, obviously do not go into the water. Stay away from the coastline. Wave action. I think most of the calls for service that we've had post-hurricane or post-storm, even northwesters, have been persons getting into difficulty by going into the water. We do have a few adventurous people kite scaling, surfing, and those other extreme sports. But again, you're putting yourself at risk, you're putting emergency responders at risk. Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, take a picture. Mr. Carter.
So first of all, let me say thank you for inviting us. My name is Roger Carter. I'm the commanding officer of the regiment. So we have been preparing since last year for any eventuality, and I'm glad to say that we were very fortunate to be able to do some real quality training in terms of things like urban search and rescue, humanitarian assistance and disaster response training, and a lot of casualty evacuation training as well. We see our readiness in terms of three major things. First is having trained people prepared to deploy. The second is having the equipment ready and able to go. And the third is being able to deploy quickly to the right place. And those are the things that we've been working on over the last year or so. And we feel reasonably prepared, and we are the regiment. We think that we continue to develop, and we hope that we can be of service to the Cayman Islands.
I think, for us, as I look and listen, I recognize that with great deference to all, I think, from the RCIPS, but the fire and the Coast Guard is where we, as a Cayman population, look to, from calling about simple things to, significant.
I just want to add that we, as a multi-agency approach rather than individual agencies, we have been practicing together. In fact, in recent times, we just concluded the airport emergency exercise about 2 weeks ago, and that is at a multi-agency approach. We also do tabletops, and we have different varying things that we go through to make ourselves ready, not just as an agency, but as a multi-agency approach to dealing with these disasters.
And just following on what Ian is saying, around the table we have persons sitting in the emergency response cluster of the NEOC. Yeah. The regiment is basically there to provide support to us all. While there are primary emergency response entities, we all need some support. We don't have enough personnel, and in that case, that is exactly where the regiment comes in and helps us out a lot. Yeah. One of the entities that you missed that play a real crucial role is the fire service. In terms of urban search and rescue, fire service has the lead within the emergency response. They have the lead in that cluster, and again, their expertise in that area is relied on quite heavily, leading into an event and also after.
Thank you very much for putting that very directly, Mr. Scott. I was being a little more subtle and diplomatic and trying to be different to the others, right? But it's the fire service, and
I mean, as to what Commander Scotland said, I mean, we would get the first initial calls, and how we approach that is one of the things that we've been building on over the years. Whether we need assistance from RCIPS, Coast Guard, or Regiment, and we call for that support, and it's readily available. Because we've broken down the silos. Where RCIPS was off one side doing their thing, Regiment came in with doing one thing, Fire was doing this. We decided that, hey, if we put everything together, to do what we do, we can offer more to the public as far as resources, manpower, everything that it takes to solve and help that individual or help those individuals. So we've been working towards that close knit mesh. We've become more family oriented. That we call Mr. Carter or anyone from RCIPS within that. They say, look, we have this situation, we need to deal with this right away, and it's a fast response. So we hope to even improve on that even better. As we go along, and that's where training and getting to know everybody and getting everything meshed out, that we can iron out the kinks and different things like that. So that's one of the goals that we've been working towards. That everybody's working as one.
Yeah, that collaboration, from what I'm hearing you share, the idea that we're prepared but we're trained, but there's a sort of cohesive response. And as I sit here, I always have my personal sort of preferences to fire services. But it's all part of it. So I thank you very much for joining us, right? And thanks to Ms. Susan for letting us to sort of ignore the schedule somewhat. But as we close it out quickly, let's go back around the table. Mr. Carter?
Well, I don't want to play favorites, but I have to say that fire service has been our closest partner.
Thanks for following me.
Yes, and to the point where we actually have a MOU with them to help them with certain things. And I'll admit they've helped us with developing our experience. We've trained together. And we're getting to know one another better, so that's really good for all of us.
Yeah. I think as Mr. Scotland takes his Coast Guard team and develops them as they're deployed, we're going to see when they become governor what's going to happen. Right? Just putting it out there for now.
Well, I mean, again, going back to fire, I mean, every entity around the table here plays their part, and we work well together. I think based on our size, it also benefits us a lot. Other countries, you don't see your opposite until something happens. We see each other almost on a daily basis, and we maintain that line of contact. But again, fire, we do share a responsibility with fire. Fire helps us out on a day-to-day basis with search and rescue, which most people don't realize. Again, we have an MOU with them. The regiment, I mean, they're always there if we need assistance. Colonel Carter has more than once said, just give them a call. And I mean, we sit within the OCP, so we're a sister agency with the RCIPS. And again, the history behind, the closeness between the two entities. The Coast Guard was actually formed out of the Joint Marine Unit, which was a part of the RCIPS. So, those ties don't go away easily.
Yeah. This is where the more we understand, the more we appreciate what it is that needs to be done, and maybe that will is eventually there. So as you wrap it up, Mr. Charlton, and then...
like I said before, to the listening public, just, heed all the warnings, prepare yourself, get what you necessarily need. Their bulletins are always constantly going out once we go into hurricane season of what you should be doing. And I just want to say from CIFS family that we would encourage everyone to please heed the warnings and stuff like that. And then, like I said, as far as the team, it's a pleasure to work with these gentlemen day in and day out. And we've become more family oriented, which makes life a whole lot easier. As Colonel Carlin and Commander Scotland said, we see each other maybe sometimes too much. You
So
know,
like family.
but it's been a pleasure. As we develop, you know, we find ourselves doing certain things, whatever that involves everybody, and the more we build that, you know, easier it becomes. You know, it makes the work like so. Again, we're hoping for a safe season. You know, as much as the scientists and everybody else is predicting that it's going to be a busy season, but we still can't say. So we just want everybody to be really, really prepared.
Mr. Yearwood.
And I know I'll echo the other three gentlemen in when you look at it, we have limited resources. When you pool all those resources together, it gives you a better or a stronger unit to deal with the issues that we might encounter, as in this case, during the hurricane season, as a collective group. And thus we can serve the people of the Cayman Islands better.
Well, thank you. And of course, we have a standing invitation, you know, individually and collectively, to come on. And as we continue this discussion, people will become not only comfortable, but better equipped, skilled, therefore competent. And I should emphasize it. We have something in Cayman that is probably not evident elsewhere. The collaborative approach, the ease with which we engage and interact, and the silos are not there. But thank you. And I commend you for having that, you know, that ethos.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Enjoy
you
the
for
rest
having
of the week.
Thank you very much.
And I think tomorrow's Monday. Okay. All right, to our listeners, join us after. We got something for you to talk to our friends about themselves.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines.
The headline news is brought to you by Kirk Market.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. A man convicted of forcing a woman into his car in May 2023 and assaulting her is sentenced to prison. Melbourne Junior Dyke expressed regret and sought leniency from the court, but was sentenced to 15 months and a restraining order for 3 years once released. In international headlines, police coordinated by the European Union's justice and police agencies have taken down computer networks responsible for spreading ransomware via infected emails in what they called the biggest ever international operation against a lucrative form of cybercrime. The European Union's Judicial Cooperation Agency, Eurojust, said today that police arrested 4 high-value suspects, took down more than 100 servers, and seized control of over 2,000 internet domains. A string of security, logistical, and weather problems has battered the plan to deliver desperately needed humanitarian aid to Gaza through a U.S. military-built pier. Broken apart by strong winds and heavy seas just a week after it became operational, the project is facing criticism that it hasn't lived up to its initial billing or its $320 million price tag. Those are your headlines. I'm April Cummings.
www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered. From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
This summer, discover adventure, magic, culture, nature, and so much more with Cayman Airways. Airfares are now on sale for travel this summer. Visit New York, Denver, Los Angeles, Miami, Tampa, Kingston, Montego Bay, Panama, Havana, and La Ceiba. But hurry, sale ends June 1st. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com. Make this your best summer yet with Cayman Airways.
Public health is the science and art of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through the organized efforts of society. Environmental health, mental health, and physical health are all public health. Cayman's new national health strategy aims to protect and promote the nation's public health outcomes, but to do this, we need to hear from you. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is now accepting feedback about healthcare in Cayman on mohfeedback@gov.ky or on gov.ky/health-wellness. Deadline is May 31st. Your opinion matters.
The Passport and Corporate Services Office is advising travelers to check their passports to ensure all is in order ahead of summer holiday travels. Travelers should check their passport validity, verify entry requirements for the destination, and apply for or renew passports and visas early. For more information, call 345-649-7678 or email passportandcorporate@gov.ky.
This is Rakeem Lashley, and I work in the water and wastewater sector. I am concerned about the vulnerability of our island's sewage systems to climate impacts. Flooding is becoming a bigger concern due to rising sea levels and more intense rainfall events. This can compromise sanitation systems and put the health and safety of our people at risk, so protecting our environment and strengthening critical infrastructure are priorities. To learn more about the climate risks to our islands, visit www.gov.ky/climate change policy.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks again for joining us. And it's always important when we have people who are not only amenable and cordial, but who are so gracious with their time that allow us to have discussions. To our new colleague from the Miami Cancer Institute of Baptist Health, thank you publicly for yielding some time earlier so that we could have had that continued the discussion. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Okay. Well, Dr. Ochoa, I asked you earlier as we, have this discussion on relative to cancer and oncology and treatments, like if you would respectfully, formally do an introduction as you would want our community to know you, hear of you, what would you want to say?
Well, I'm a medical oncologist. That is a physician, a doctor who specializes in treating cancer patients. My specialty deals mostly with the treatment of cancer by using things like chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and targeted therapies.
And I maybe want, if you remind me, to ask more about immunotherapy and the like, but as an oncologist, when we're looking at cancers, Dr. Ochoa, is it that cancer is cancer, whether it's in the lung or some other organ?
Yeah, so immunotherapy is an actually relatively new development where we use medications to use the patient's or the patient's own immune system to do the cancer fighting. This has been proven to be very successful in a number of different cancers, including head and neck, lung, but also kidney and leukemias and lymphomas. So the number of cancers that we're able to successfully treat with immunotherapy continues to grow.
If I might ask, I watch in different spaces words that become almost synonymous and sometimes they're distinct. So immunotherapy, and then we hear stem cell, and then there are different things. Are they similar? Are they the same? If not, how are they different?
Yes. So immunotherapy essentially means any type of treatment that uses the immune system, to elicit a response against cancer. And there's many different types of immunotherapy. We talk about medications such as the ones that I prescribe in my clinic, immune checkpoint inhibitors and others. There are hematopoietic stem cell transplants, which is another form of immunotherapy that is usually done in the hospital. More recently, things like CAR-T, where we are able to remove immune cells from the patient, and in the lab, we retrain them to attack the cancer, and then we give them back to the patient. So that's the type of immunotherapy as well. And something that a lot of us are, familiar with, vaccines are a form of immunotherapy as well.
Right. And thanks, Dr. Ochoa, for sharing that. Because in preparation for today, I looked at some of the stuff from Baptist Health, some of the videos they upload, plus others, and recognizing that not only is this a sort of specialist area, but it's innovative, it's emerging. There are things that are happening today that are cutting edge. Those technologies and some of those innovations at Baptist Health, what can you share with us in relation to your specialty?
Yes, quite a few. So when we talk about cancer care, we have to talk about surgery, we have to talk about radiation, and we have to talk about medical treatments. So I think Baptist is at the cutting edge in all these three disciplines. From the surgical standpoint, minimally invasive surgery or robotic surgery has become really the standard of care for many of our patients, where we're able to reduce the amount of time they spend in the hospital, reduce the time that it takes to recover, minimize the pain and complications from surgery. So that's one that is super important. Most of the cases that we do for head and neck, most of them are, robotic. Then we go into radiation treatment. There are many different types of radiation with different indications, but definitely one of the newer technologies is proton therapy, which is a form of radiation that allows us to successfully treat the area of concern, the area with the cancer, while sparing the healthy tissues as much as possible. So that reduces a lot of the side effects that we associate with treatment. And lastly, in my own practice, I deal with systemic therapies. We have more and better chemotherapies that are better tolerated. We have better medications to make these treatments easier on the body. And we have immunotherapy, which is different from the old concept of chemo, where it's a medication that is toxic to the whole body. Immunotherapy is using the immune system, right, to release the brake, so to speak, on the immunity and allow the immune system to do what it does best, which is protect us.
I like how you shared it. You put it into the lab, retrain, and then put it back into that particular individual. So each one is bespoke, almost customizable to that particular patient. And then it'll target that area as opposed to being sort of a cluster for everything.
Yes, no, it is a form of personalized therapy, for CAR T-cell therapy specifically, right? This is a very specific treatment for very specific types of conditions. So two people getting a CAR T-cell therapy are actually getting completely different products, so to speak.
How do you determine as a physician, patient presents, you're looking at the prognosis, you're going to choose this option versus that? What sort of factors going in to make that determination?
Many factors. We take into account not only the characteristics of the patient, the health, other medical issues, obviously their preferences, whether they have any adverse effects from previous treatments, and obviously we try to have in our clinic what we call a multidisciplinary clinic, where it's not only patients seeing one physician, but they see 3 or 4. They end up seeing a surgeon, a radiation oncologist, a medical oncologist, a caseworker, a dietitian, essentially a big group. So after we see the patient, everybody, gets to work together and try to figure out what the plan is most appropriate for that patient in front of us, because every single patient is going to be different.
And in looking, Dr. Ochoa, at the factors, do things like the age, so God forbid a very young child or an elderly person, age, ethnicity, are there any other factors that may come into play relative to the course of action?
Yeah, so we are doing a lot of testing nowadays, genetic testing, and what we call next generation sequencing. Those are tests where we take a sample of the tumor from a biopsy or a surgery, and that is sent over to the lab to identify if there's any particular genetic mutations that are driving or fueling that cancer. And when we find that, we might have particular drugs that target those specific mutations. So that has really revolutionized how we decide, which treatment is right for which person.
Right. And those genetic markers that you reference, as we look at it in that biopsy, is it possible that any cancer, anywhere, I know you referenced that for you, lung, head, and neck, but would it be possible that a cancer could be somewhere so placed that you can't get a biopsy of the tumor?
Yeah, there are cases where doing a biopsy is either technically challenging, it's in an area that is very difficult to put a needle safely, or in a patient who might not be able to tolerate such a procedure because of their age or comorbidities. So we have what we call liquid biopsies, which essentially is a blood sample where we're able to identify a lot of these markers. They're not perfect tests yet, but they can really help us get diagnosis and potential markers without the need for an actual tissue biopsy.
If I might ask, and thank you for encouraging in me that sort of acquisitive mind that seeks knowledge and identification, as you shared, that liquid markers that you reference. We come in to the physician, we see you, there is some issue, but what about those people who are not sure? They just want to allay their fears, get a peace of mind. Are there things they can do beforehand in a particular test that may sort of allay their fears as to whether or not this thing could be precancerous?
Yeah, well, it really depends on what we're talking about. There's a lot of screening, a lot of emphasis in prevention and screening. So screening essentially means a test that can allow us to detect, a condition at a very early stage where we can act upon it and either resolve it or cure it or minimize the need for extensive treatments. So the role of screening is very well defined for breast cancer, the mammograms. Is very well defined for lung cancers. We do recommend screening CTs with a low dose CT in certain patients that are heavy smokers or who have been smoking for a period of time. And there's a few other screening tests. None of them are perfect, but it's a way of identifying, many of those patients early on.
Yeah, and I appreciate you reminding us of how important is screening, but not, looking at it, speaking to your physician, so when you do, get there and you have the space, you have maybe some added time. For cancers today, we're seeing more and more concern that patients are presenting and it's advanced. Any considerations or advice you may have there?
Yeah, so obviously talking to your primary care doctors, they're the gatekeepers here, so they're the ones who are usually identify symptoms, early, and they're able to recommend all these screening tests. So just seeing your regular doctor might be as simple as that, right? To make sure that you're up to speed with your age-appropriate health screenings, your blood work, and things like that. You're able to pick up a lot of things during those normal healthcare visits.
And thanks, Dr. Ochoa. I wanted to also maybe ask, as we look at specific, lung cancers and the like, as patients, obviously our environment and lifestyle, whether we smoke and the like, what sort of stuff you can help us to appreciate when it comes to those specialties, the lung cancer in particular, whether it's head and neck, and if there are any particular connections?
Yeah, so you cannot talk about lung cancer without talking about smoking or smoking cessation, right?
Yeah.
We know that the vast majority of lung cancers, are triggered, unfortunately, by smoking. So smoking cessation is sometimes something that I spend hours talking to my patients about. It's never too late to quit smoking, even in those patients who already have a cancer diagnosis. We know that quitting smoking can actually improve outcomes. So quitting smoking, never too late. There's many resources. Our primary care doctors are really good at identifying, who wants to be helped and what resources are available. There's all kinds of things from patches, nicotine gums, and just sitting and talking to someone, who wants to quit smoking in some cases goes a long way. The same is true for head and neck cancers. We know that smoking is not good for head and neck cancers as well. So I think if we can do one single thing to improve our health overall, it's quitting smoking for those who smoke.
And I think from what you shared, the inference is not just for that individual, but for the others around, second and even third hand, we're understanding.
Correct. Yes, we know that is the exposure to smoke that is dangerous, not the smoking per se, right? So if you smoke or live in a house where there are smokers, you might have an increased risk of developing, lung disease and even cancer.
And lung cancer is probably self-evident, but when you talk about head and neck, for those who may not fully appreciate, what exactly are we referring to when we say head and neck cancers?
Yeah, very good question. So when we talk about head and neck cancers, we're talking about any cancer that originates from the mouth. That includes the tongue, the palate, the tonsils, the throat area, all the structures in our throat, all the way down to our voice box. So everything in the neck area. And there's many different organs, in those areas. The risk factors, as we mentioned, smoking is going to be one of them. Drinking in excess is going to be another one. And certain types of viral infections, such as HPV, is going to be another risk factor for head and neck cancers.
Yeah, and thank you for reference drinking, because so many people would understand and appreciate about smoking or similar activities, but drinking, that to excess, the impact that could have, we would probably see it on other organs lower down. But to think that it could be, within the head and neck sort of specialty.
Yeah, we know that in patients who drink and smoke heavily, is like a double, a double negative factor, especially for head and neck. We're injuring that mucosa much more, and it does increase the risk.
If I might then ask, and thanks again for the time, when we're looking at sort of, long term, as a patient who has been given this diagnosis, what's the sort of the future outlook for him, especially with the immunotherapy and increased usage of emerging technologies?
Yeah, so depends a little bit on the underlying disease state, which type of lung cancer, which type of head and neck cancer. But what I can tell you in general about those patients that are candidates to be treated with immunotherapy, even those patients that present in an advanced stage, those patients who respond to immunotherapy tend to have very prolonged or long-lasting responses. So it's not unusual for us to continue these patients on treatment for a year or even years, with the disease under control. We might not be able to call it a cure necessarily, but these patients are living normal lives or near normal lives while undergoing therapy.
And if I might then, in relation to, say, chemo, radiation, immunotherapy, some must have a perception of what chemo radiation does to the person, their appearance, their appetite suppression, their hair loss, or other things. Immunotherapy, any?
Yeah, a little different in the side effect profile. Typically, immunotherapy is, in general terms, better tolerated than conventional chemotherapy, in the sense that some of those symptoms that you mentioned, the hair loss, the untractable nausea, vomiting, etc., we typically do not see those at all. There are some cases where there might be some hair thinning. Sometimes there can be some hair discoloration, that the hair can turn a little white in certain areas. Can happen, but is significantly less common than with chemotherapy. It's not to say that immunotherapy has zero side effects. It does have a very specific type of side effects. We call those immune-mediated toxicities. These are side effects that are related to the inflammation that the medication, originates in the body. So it can cause inflammation of many different organs, most typically the skin, that can present as a rash that can be, itchy or sometimes even painful. There can be inflammation of the lung lining that can present as cough or shortness of breath. There can be inflammation of the liver. Most patients don't notice anything, but we're able to see on their blood work that the liver seems to be stressed. Or inflammation of the bowels, right, the gut, that can present with colic, abdominal pain, or even diarrhea. So those are some of the side effects that we do see with immunotherapy. But to answer your question, when we compare that to chemotherapy, for the most part, it's much better tolerated.
Right. And then just for the clarity, comparing, say, organ transplants and other similar things, with immunotherapy, it is your body that you're getting this thing from to go back into your body, or is it possible for a sibling or a donor match?
No, there's no donors. With conventional immunotherapy, or at least what we do in our clinic, is medications, right? And these medications are injected through an IV, and what the medication does is it stimulates a subset of your immune system, the T cells, to get to work. So you're not getting a donor cell from anyone else. That is true for bone marrow transplants and other procedures, which are other forms of immunotherapy. But for the conventional immunotherapy that we use for head and neck cancers, lung cancer, is a medication that stimulates your own immunity to get to work.
And thanks. And why, I really appreciate you emphasizing that. Sometimes we don't appreciate, we need to take care of ourselves. So those early mitigation strategies, as part of the prevention, trying to make our bodies as healthy as we can, just in case. But from what you also shared, I like it. You're taking them and you're retraining them. That brings us back to our mindset as to how we're taking care of ourselves. In closing, Dr. Ochoa, what else would you want the listening public to know in particular about your specialty at Miami Cancer?
Yeah, no, that, we at Baptist, we have a huge and a great amount of subspecialists, in all kinds of different cancers. We tend to be subspecialized in specific disease states, and we have great surgeons, great radiation oncologists, great medical oncologists, and also a great support system, because this is a multidisciplinary approach. We need dietitians, we need social workers, we need speech-language pathologists, we need pain specialists, symptom management. All of that we have at MCI, at Miami Cancer Institute, under one roof.
Under one roof. So that is a one-stop shop that makes it better, right? Well, thank you for taking time out and stopping in, having a chance for us to recognize that, as daunting as it may be, we don't need to be so discouraged, because it helps around the corner, they say.
Thank you again for the invitation.
Thanks very much, Dr. Ochoa. And Susan, thank you publicly again for joining us. And to our listeners, remember, I'll be absent for a couple of days consciously. As of tomorrow, I'll be back another day. So see you when I get back. Take care.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways, call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. And Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.